Sophia sighed as she placed the last dish in the cupboard. The small apartment she shared with her husband, Tom, was tidy and warm, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. At 28, she had imagined a different life, one filled with comfort, financial security, and the luxury of choosing things without checking price tags. Tom, on the other hand, was a kind and devoted husband. He worked hard at his job as an office assistant, earning just enough for them to live a simple but stable life. Still, every time Sophia scrolled through social media or met her old friends for coffee, she couldn't help but compare her situation to theirs. Expensive vacations, designer handbags, candlelit dinners at five-star restaurants, things that seemed so distant from her own reality. Tom always tried to make her happy in his own way. He brought her flowers on random afternoons, cooked her favorite meals on weekends, and never failed to kiss her goodnight. But love alone didn't pay the bills. That evening, as she sat across from Tom at their modest dining table, she found herself lost in thought. His face, slightly tired from a long day, still lit up when he talked about his plans, how he wanted to work harder. Maybe get a promotion, make things better for them. Sophia smiled, but deep down, doubt lingered. Will love ever be enough? She pushed the thought away and reached for his hand. He squeezed it gently, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. Tom had always known that Sophia dreamed of a better life. She never said it outright, but he saw it in the way she looked at expensive storefronts. The way she scrolled through her phone with a quiet sigh, the way she sometimes hesitated before picking the more affordable option at the grocery store. He wanted to give her everything. Determined, Tom started working extra hours at the office. He took on additional tasks, volunteered for weekend shifts, and even skipped lunch breaks to prove his dedication. At the end of the month, his paycheck was slightly bigger, and with it, he bought Sophia a surprise, a delicate silver bracelet. When he handed it to her, she smiled, her eyes lighting up for a brief moment. "It's beautiful," she murmured, running her fingers over the thin chain. But then, just as quickly, her expression faltered. He noticed. "It's not much," Tom said, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I wanted to get you something nice." "I love it," she assured him, forcing a smile. And she did, but deep inside, a whisper of disappointment lingered. It wasn't about the bracelet itself, but the reality it represented. While other women received diamonds and luxury gifts, she had to be content with small tokens of love. Tom, however, didn't stop trying. He made her coffee every morning, left little notes in her purse, and even attempted to cook dinner on nights when she looked particularly tired. But she wasn't tired, she was restless. She didn't want to be ungrateful. She knew Tom was doing his best. But how could she ignore the nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, love wasn't enough? Sophia sat at the cafe with her friends, stirring her latte absent-mindedly as they talked. The conversation had started light, work gossip, family updates, but soon shifted to their husbands and the extravagant things they did for them. "Daniel surprised me with a trip to Italy last month," Lisa said, flipping her hair back as she scrolled through photos on her phone. "5-star hotels, private tours. It was a dream." "My husband bought me this," Rachel added, flashing a diamond bracelet. "Just because he saw it and thought of me." Sophia smiled politely, but inside, something twisted. She thought of Tom's silver bracelet, the one she had barely worn, and guilt crept in. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate him. It was just, she wished things were different. When she got home that evening, Tom was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The scent of garlic and butter filled the air. "Hey, you're home early," he said with a warm smile. "I made your favorite." She hesitated, setting her purse down. Tom, Do you ever think about, she stopped herself. Think about what? He asked, turning to her. She shook her head. Nothing. It smells great. But the air between them had changed. As they ate, Sophia couldn't hold it in anymore. I was with Lisa and Rachel today, she said, pushing her food around with her fork. Their husbands, they do so much for them. Tom frowned. I try, Sophia. I really do. I know, she said quickly, feeling a pang of guilt. I didn't mean it like that. She sighed. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like, you know? Not worrying about money all the time. Tom was silent for a moment, then nodded. I understand. And he did. Which was why, after that night, he worked even harder. Tom pushed himself harder. He took on extra shifts, skipped his lunch breaks, and even started bringing work home. Every night, Sophia would find him at the dining table, eyes glued to his laptop, a cup of coffee growing cold beside him. At first, she appreciated his dedication. But as days turned into weeks, she started noticing the toll it was taking on him. His face grew paler, the dark circles under his eyes deepened, and his usual warm smile became rare. When she reached for his hand at dinner, his grip was weaker. Some nights, he barely made it to bed before falling asleep mid-sentence. You need to slow down, she told him one evening, watching as he massaged his temples. I can't, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. I'm doing this for us, Sophia. She didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to tell him to stop, that she never asked him to push himself this hard. But another part, the one still haunted by the lavish stories her friends told, remained silent. Then, one night, everything changed. Sophia was in the bedroom when she heard a loud thud from the kitchen. Her heart jumped as she rushed out to find Tom collapsed on the floor, his body limp, his breathing shallow. Tom, she gasped, kneeling beside him, shaking his shoulders. Wake up! Please! Panic surged through her as she grabbed her phone and dialed for help. Her hands trembled as she pressed the buttons, her mind racing. Moments later, she sat in the ambulance, gripping his hand as tears welled in her eyes. The sight of him, so strong, so determined, now lying motionless, shattered something inside her. For the first time, Sophia felt true fear. And for the first time, she asked herself a question she had never considered before. What if I lose him? The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Sophia sat beside Tom's bed, her fingers curled around his hand. His skin was warm but fragile, his breathing slow and steady. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. Severe exhaustion. Malnutrition. Stress-induced collapse. She had been so blinded by what she didn't have that she failed to see what was right in front of her. Memories flooded her, Tom laughing as he cooked her favorite meal, leaving sweet notes in her purse, holding her hand under the table. Every little gesture had been his way of showing love, yet she had dismissed them, comparing him to men who had money but perhaps not the same devotion. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, though Tom was still asleep. She thought back to the night she had complained about her friend's lavish gifts. That was when he started pushing himself harder. He had been trying so desperately to meet an expectation she never realized she had set. Had she made him feel like he wasn't enough? The weight of her selfishness crushed her. Hours passed before Tom's eyes finally fluttered open. He blinked, disoriented, then turned his head slightly toward her. Hey, he murmured, his voice weak. Sophia let out a shaky breath. Hey, she whispered back, squeezing his hand. You scared me. He tried to smile but failed. guess I overdid it. She swallowed the lump in her throat. I don't want you to work yourself to death for me, Tom. Her voice cracked. I don't care about fancy gifts or luxury trips. I just want you. Tom studied her for a moment before nodding. Relief flickered in his tired eyes. Sophia made a silent promise to herself. From now on, she would cherish what truly mattered. Tom was finally home. Though still weak, he insisted on sitting with Sophia at the dining table. The same place where so many of their conversations had taken place, some light-hearted, others filled with unspoken frustrations. This time, things felt different. Sophia placed a bowl of warm soup in front of him and sat down beside him, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her cup. You should rest more, she said softly. Tom chuckled, shaking his head. I think I've had enough rest to last a lifetime. She smiled but then took a deep breath. Tom. I need to tell you something. He looked at her, waiting. I was wrong, she admitted. All this time, I kept looking at what we didn't have instead of appreciating what we do have. Her voice wavered, but she pushed forward. You've given me everything that really matters: love, respect, kindness. And I let myself believe that money was more important. Tom reached for her hand. I just wanted you to be happy, Sophia. I am happy, she said, her eyes shining. And I don't need expensive gifts or trips to prove that. I just need you. Tom squeezed her hand, his tired smile full of warmth. Then we'll be just fine. The weight in her chest lifted, replaced by something lighter, something stronger. That night, as they sat together, sharing a quiet meal, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. She knew that love wasn't measured by wealth, but by the small, everyday moments that made life meaningful. And with Tom by her side, she finally understood she already had everything she ever needed. The end. Tell us in the comments what you learned today. Your feedback is super important for us to keep bringing even better content. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to keep practicing English in a natural and engaging way. See you in the next lesson.